All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, here's a good question for everyone. What do you do when you're faced with the contradiction? The initial impulse is usually to deflect, but in my limited career here, I've learned that even when it sucks, the best thing to do is just simply admit it. Try and explain what led to your decision, but as we all know with elites in our society today, that is almost never the option that they take. They lash out and attack, or worse. And in a more recent strain of Western commentary, they then attack themselves. This was, of course, the tactic pursued by the FIFA president Gianni Infantino at a recent press conference in Qatar, where he was asked to square the World Cup in Qatar with Qatar's treatment of gays in its society, its horrific abuse of migrant laborers to even pull the event off in the first place, and the whimsical decision through which they just decided to ban alcohol at the last minute in stadiums. Let's take a listen.
I'm European. Actually, I am European. Not just I feel European. I think for what we Europeans have been doing in the last 3,000 years around the world, we should be apologizing for the next 3,000 years before starting to give moral lessons to people. Today, I have very strong feelings. I can tell you that. Today, I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arab. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled. Today I feel a migrant worker.
Interesting tactic. Before adopting the insane and odd "today I feel X" to try and project some sense of inclusion, the FIFA president tries to try whataboutism his way, just off straight facts. That his organization took untold bribes to overlook Qatar's backward society. It took extraordinary steps to make this event work, even when it was clear that it shouldn't be there in the first place, and is covering for the country when it violates an explicit agreement that was made for fans of soccer or of football traveling there from across the world. Let's break it down, shall we? With the most important part. Why is the World Cup in Qatar at all? The answer is simple, that anyone with a brain can tell you. Money! It's not speculation. Thanks to our Department of Justice, we know for a fact multiple board members of FIFA accepted millions of dollars in bribes to award Qatar with the World Cup. Two of them can't even deny it because, remarkably, we have it on tape. If you are really still wondering, on FIFA's own website, they actually literally named the officials who took bribes for awarding Qatar over the United States World Cup. So, at this point, I know that's an old scandal. It does remain important to understand, though, that Qatar never once was awarded the World Cup on any sense of merit. It was money, root and branch, that has infused this farce from day one. Ever since the board members delivered on their corrupt bargain, they have been having to work overtime to defend it. First and most obvious, why is the World Cup being held right now? It doesn't take a genius to figure out how hot it gets in the Middle East in the summer. Qatar's initial promise was that they would spend lavishly, and I'm not kidding, on mobile flying air conditioners, which would somehow totally work in an open-air stadium whenever it's 150 degrees outside. After just 3 years, they basically had to admit that wasn't going to happen, and it required them to go on hundreds of millions of dollars influence and spending spree across Europe to get leagues and teams and officials to agree to move their schedules to the winter just so they could make it tolerable. More so, the Qataris are in some sense the dog that caught the car. Now what? Well, now they actually had to host the thing. And this is where some of the worst of this has materialized. The country to date has spent some $220 billion on getting ready for the World Cup, from building a new airport to totally redesigning its entire infrastructure. At one point, in 2017, the country's economic minister admitted they were spending $500 million a week on infrastructure just to get ready for the Cup. And of course, who's going to build all that infrastructure? It ain't the Qataris. I think we all know that. It was the pre-existing, essentially slave migrant laborers who would. Laborers predominantly from India, Nepal, Pakistan, the Philippines, and many other third world countries. They were shipped in, effectively confined to labor camps. They had no protections or rights. They worked hours on end in the heat with no recourse. I have seen their treatment firsthand when I lived there. It is something shocking to the Western conscience. Men living in squalor, their passports seized, transferring back their meager earnings so their families can eat. in many cases, a lifetime facing ailments. Also, these monstrous stadiums can arise in the desert, never to be used again. Nobody really knows how many of them have straight up died building these stadiums. The minimum is 6,500, but it could be tens of thousands more. That cutoff, though, was in 2020, before another sprint of building was even happening in Qatar. Qatar has the gall to try and allay that criticism by erecting pictures of migrant laborers in some sort of monument on the side of their stadiums, as if that is not just a glaring reminder that they actually don't do anything themselves, and those that do help them are treated as third-class citizens in their own country. And then finally is the illustration of hypocrisy. Having lived in Qatar, again, let me tell you something any high-rolling concierge in Las Vegas knows. Some of the hardest partying degenerates in the world are the princes of the Gulf Arab states. And yet, when nearly 1 million fans are on their way to the World Cup, Qatar at the last minute decided to renege on its promise alcohol would be available for fans in stadiums. You could say, oh, well, fair enough, I guess, except for this little detail. You can still get alcohol in the stadium. You just have to be able to afford a ticket in the luxury suite that costs, at a minimum, $20,000. Now let me ask you, where in the stadium will the little Qatari princelings be? Where are they going to be watching and sitting? You can bet they're going to be sipping on Dom Perignon champagne, while normal fans who came in from around the world are subject now to Islamic theocratic rules they don't believe in, while they're being violated by the very people who set the rules in that country. From day one, this has been a farce. On a personal level, it is somewhat cathartic. The first time I ever understood what it's like to live without freedom of speech is Qatar. My last 2 years of high school, I saw injustice around me in the treatment of these migrant workers, and in the sheer arrogance through which the Qatari royal family conducts itself and comports itself. And I could say nothing, because they would literally throw me out of the country. To date, they have relied on people who have been there and seen their barbarism up close to keep their mouths shut, because they can just buy people off. Lucky for me, I don't care if I ever set foot there again, and the people who pay my salary are those who stand against everything that they do. So let the games begin, I guess. I hope Team USA isn't as big of a disappointment as they normally are. But when you see the ground they play on, try to remember it is infused with blood, corruption, and maybe, let's just never let this happen again. And look, Crystal, I've seen some criticisms of, I know I use pointed language.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.